People always tell me they want to practice speaking English every single day, but then they say they can't because they don't have anyone to talk to. And I get it. I really do. When you're learning a language, it feels like you need another person there with you, right? Like you need someone to respond, someone to correct you, someone to have a conversation with. But here's the thing. You don't actually need a partner to practice speaking English every day. I know that sounds weird, but stick with me here, because I'm going to show you exactly how you can do this, and I promise it's going to change everything for you. So let me just say this right up front. If you're waiting for the perfect conversation partner to magically appear in your life before you start practicing speaking, you're going to be waiting a really long time. And in the meantime, you're not getting better. You're not building that muscle. Because speaking is a muscle, and just like any other muscle in your body, you have to use it to make it stronger. You can't just think about going to the gym, you have to actually go. And the same thing applies to speaking English. Now I want to talk about why speaking to yourself, speaking alone, is actually one of the best things you can do. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel better about not having a partner. I'm saying it because it's true. When you practice alone, you get to focus completely on yourself. You're not worried about what the other person is thinking. You're not embarrassed if you make a mistake. You're not trying to keep up with someone who speaks faster than you. You're in total control. And that is so powerful. Think about it this way. When you're talking to another person, especially a native speaker, you're under pressure. You're trying to understand what they're saying, you're trying to think of what to say back, you're trying to use the right words, and you're doing all of this at the same time. It's a lot. And yeah, that's good practice, don't get me wrong. But when you're alone, you can slow down. You can repeat things. You can try different ways of saying the same sentence. You can experiment. And there's no one there to judge you. That freedom is incredibly valuable. So let's talk about the actual techniques you can use to speak English every day without a partner. I'm going to give you a bunch of different methods, and I want you to try them all and see which ones work best for you. Because here's the thing, not every technique is going to feel right for every person. Some of you are going to love one method, and some of you are going to prefer something totally different, and that's fine. The goal is just to find what works for you and then do it consistently. The first thing I want you to try is narrating your life. And I mean literally just describing what you're doing as you're doing it. This is such a simple technique, but it's so effective. So let's say you're making coffee in the morning. Instead of just making your coffee in silence, you talk yourself through it. You say things like, okay, I'm walking to the kitchen now. I'm opening the cabinet. I'm taking out my favorite mug. It's the blue one with the chip on the handle. Now I'm filling the kettle with water. I'm turning on the stove. You get the idea. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that sounds so weird. I'm going to feel ridiculous. And yeah, at first you might feel a little silly. But remember, no one is listening. You're alone. And this technique is amazing because you're using real, practical English to describe real things that are happening in your life right now. You're not memorizing phrases from a textbook. You're creating your own sentences based on what you're actually experiencing. The beautiful thing about narration is that you can do it literally all day long. When you're getting dressed, when you're cooking, when you're cleaning, when you're walking to the store, when you're doing laundry. Every single activity is an opportunity to practice. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. After a while, you won't even have to think about it. The English will just start flowing. Now, here's a little tip to make this even better. Try to add details. Don't just say, I'm making coffee. Say, I'm making coffee because I'm really tired today. I didn't sleep well last night. I kept waking up. So I really need this caffeine to help me feel more awake. See what I did there? I turned a simple action into a few sentences with reasons and feelings. That's what makes your speaking richer and more interesting. Another thing you can do is have conversations with yourself. And I mean actual conversations where you play both roles. I know this sounds even weirder than narrating your day, but trust me, this works. Let's say you want to practice talking about your weekend plans. You can literally ask yourself a question and then answer it. So you say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And then you answer, Oh, I'm thinking about going to the park if the weather is nice. I might bring a book and just relax for a while. What about you? And then you switch roles again and answer from the other person's perspective. Well, I'm not sure yet. I might visit my friend. She's been asking me to come over for a while now, and you just keep going back and forth like that. The cool thing about this is that you're not just practicing speaking. You're also practicing the rhythm of conversation. You're learning how to ask questions, how to respond, how to keep a conversation going. And you're doing all of this at your own pace. You can also use this technique to practice specific situations. Let's say you have a job interview coming up, or you need to make a phone call in English, or you want to order food at a restaurant. You can practice the entire conversation by yourself beforehand. You play the interviewer and yourself. You play the person taking your order and yourself, and you run through it multiple times until you feel comfortable. By the time you're in the actual situation, it's not going to feel scary anymore because you've already practiced it 10 times at home. Now let's talk about something I call the describe and explain method. This is where you pick an object, any object around you, and you describe it in detail. And then you explain how it works or what it's used for. So let's say you pick up your phone. You start by describing what it looks like. My phone is black and it has a glass screen. It's pretty thin, maybe about this big. There's a camera on the back and some buttons on the side. Then you explain what it does. I use my phone for so many things. I use it to call people, to send messages, to check my email, to look things up on the internet, to take photos. I probably use it way too much, to be honest. This technique is great because it forces you to really think about the words you need. And it builds your vocabulary in a natural way. You're not just memorizing a list of words. You're using them in context. And the more you practice describing different things, the easier it gets to find the right words when you need them. Here's another one, read out loud. I cannot stress this enough. Reading out loud is one of the absolute best things you can do for your speaking skills, and the reason is simple. When you read silently, you're only practicing in your head. But when you read out loud, you're using your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords. You're physically practicing the movements of speaking English, and that muscle memory is so important. You can read anything: a book, a news article, a blog post, a recipe, the back of a cereal box. It doesn't matter, just pick something and read it out loud. And here's the key: don't rush, read slowly and clearly. Pay attention to how the words feel in your mouth. Notice where you're putting the stress. If you come across a word you're not sure how to pronounce, look it up. Listen to how it's pronounced and then practice saying it yourself a few times. And here's a bonus tip: record yourself reading. I know, most people hate the sound of their own voice, but recording yourself is incredibly useful. When you listen back, you can hear your mistakes. You can hear where you're mumbling or where your pronunciation isn't quite right. And then you can work on fixing those things. It's like being your own teacher. Let me tell you about shadowing, because this is another powerful technique. Shadowing is when you listen to someone speaking English and you repeat what they say at almost the same time. So you're like a shadow following right behind them. You can do this with podcasts, with YouTube videos, with audiobooks, with anything where someone is speaking clearly. The way it works is you play the audio, and as the person is speaking, you speak along with them. You try to match their speed, their intonation, their rhythm. At first, this is really hard. You might not be able to keep up, but that's okay. You can start by pausing after each sentence and repeating it. Then, as you get better, you can try to overlap more and more until you're speaking at the same time as the audio. Shadowing is amazing for improving your pronunciation, your rhythm, and your fluency. It trains your mouth to move faster and more naturally, and it helps you internalize the patterns of English. After you've done shadowing for a while, you'll notice that you start to sound more like a native speaker without even trying. The patterns just become part of how you speak. Now I want to talk about thinking in English, because this is a game changer. A lot of English learners think in their native language and then translate into English when they need to speak. And that's natural at first, but it really slows you down. And it often leads to mistakes because you're trying to translate word for word, and that doesn't always work. So instead, you want to start thinking in English. And the way to do this is to make English the language of your internal monologue. When you're thinking about what to have for lunch, think about it in English. When you're planning your day, plan it in English. When you're worrying about something, worry about it in English. I know that sounds hard, but it gets easier with practice. At first, you might only be able to do it for a few seconds before you switch back to your native language. That's fine. Just keep trying. Keep redirecting your thoughts into English. Over time, you'll be able to sustain it for longer periods, and eventually, it will become automatic. And when that happens, speaking English becomes so much easier because you're not translating anymore. You're just speaking directly from your thoughts. Let's talk about using a mirror. This is a technique that actors use, and it works really well for language learners too. Stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself. Watch your face as you speak. Pay attention to your mouth movements. See how your lips and tongue move when you make different sounds. This visual feedback is really helpful. And there's another benefit too. When you practice in front of a mirror, you get used to seeing yourself speak English. You build confidence. Because when you eventually speak with another person, it's not going to feel as strange or scary. You've already seen yourself doing it. You know you can do it. You can practice all kinds of things in front of a mirror. You can practice introducing yourself. You can practice telling stories. You can practice giving presentations. You can even practice different facial expressions and gestures to go along with your words. Communication isn't just about the words you say. It's also about body language. And practicing in front of a mirror helps you become more aware of that. Here's something else you can try. Comment on things you see. When you're watching TV or scrolling through social media or looking out the window, just make comments about what you see. In English, of course. So you see a dog walking by and you say, "Oh, that's a cute dog. It looks really fluffy. I wonder what breed it is." Or you're watching a cooking show and you say, "Wow, that looks delicious. I should try making that sometime. I love how golden brown that chicken is." This technique is great because it's spontaneous. You're reacting in the moment, just like you would in a real conversation. And you're building the habit of expressing your thoughts in English without overthinking it. That spontaneity is really important for fluency. You want to get to the point where English just comes out naturally without you having to plan every sentence in your head first. Now let's talk about keeping a voice journal. Instead of writing in a journal, record yourself talking about your day. Just open up the voice recorder on your phone and talk for 5 or 10 minutes. Tell yourself about what you did today, how you felt, what went well, what didn't go well, what you're looking forward to tomorrow. Just talk like you're talking to a friend. The great thing about a voice journal is that it's completely private. You don't have to worry about anyone hearing it. And you can go back and listen to your old recordings to see how much you've improved. It's really motivating when you listen to a recording from a month ago and you can hear how much better you sound now. And here's another tip. Don't delete your mistakes. When you're recording and you mess up a word or lose your train of thought, don't stop and start over. Just keep going. Correct yourself if you need to, but keep the recording going. Because in real life, when you're speaking with someone, you can't just hit delete and start over. You have to keep going. So practice that. Practice recovering from mistakes and continuing on. Let me tell you about singing, because this is actually a really fun way to practice speaking. When you sing along to English songs, you're practicing pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation in a really natural way. And because music is enjoyable, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like fun. Pick songs that you like and that have clear lyrics. Look up the lyrics so you know what you're singing, and then sing along. Don't worry about whether you have a good singing voice. That's not the point. The point is to practice the sounds and patterns of English. And because songs are repetitive, you end up practicing the same words and phrases over and over without even realizing it. Singing also helps with word stress and sentence rhythm, which are really important in English. When you Speak English, some words are stressed and some aren't. Some syllables are longer and some are shorter, and music naturally emphasizes those patterns. So when you sing, you're training your ear and your mouth to follow those patterns. Here's a technique that might sound a little strange, but it works. Talk to your pets or your plants. If you have a dog or a cat or even a goldfish, talk to them in English. Tell them about your day. Ask them how they're doing. Describe what you're feeding them. It doesn't matter that they don't understand you. The point is that you're practicing speaking out loud, and somehow it feels less weird to talk to a pet than to talk to yourself. And if you don't have pets, talk to your plants. I'm serious. There are actually studies that show that talking to plants can help them grow. So you're helping your plants and helping your English at the same time. And even if you don't have plants, you can talk to objects. Talk to your coffee maker, talk to your car, talk to your computer. I know it sounds ridiculous, but when you're alone and you want to practice speaking, this is a perfectly valid way to do it. Let's talk about the power of repetition. One of the best ways to improve your speaking is to take one sentence or one phrase and repeat it over and over with different intonations and emotions. So let's take a simple sentence like, I can't believe it. Say it like you're surprised. I can't believe it. Say it like you're happy. I can't believe it. Say it like you're angry. I can't believe it. Say it like you're disappointed. I can't believe it. See how the same words can sound completely different depending on how you say them? This is something that native speakers do naturally, but as a learner, you have to practice it consciously. And the more you practice varying your intonation and emotion, the more natural and expressive your speaking becomes. You can do this with any sentence. Take a sentence from a TV show or a book or just make one up and practice saying it in 10 different ways. It's like an acting exercise, and it really helps you understand how much communication depends on how you say something, not just what you say. Now, I want to talk about using technology to help you. There are so many tools available now that can help you practice speaking English alone. You can use language learning apps that have speaking exercises. You can use speech recognition software to see if your pronunciation is clear enough for a computer to understand you. You can use AI chatbots that you can have conversations with. Some people even use voice assistants like Siri or Alexa to practice. You can ask them questions in English and see if they understand you. You can have them tell you jokes or give you information. And if they understand you correctly, you know your pronunciation is pretty good. If they don't understand you, you know you need to work on that particular sound or word. There are also apps where you can record yourself, and the app will give you feedback on your pronunciation. Some of these apps even use AI to score your speaking and tell you what you need to improve. Now, these tools aren't perfect, and they shouldn't replace human interaction completely, but they're really useful supplements, especially when you're practicing alone. Let me give you a really practical exercise you can do right now. Pick a topic, any topic you're interested in. It could be your job, your hobby, your family, a place you want to visit, a movie you watched recently, anything. Set a timer for 2 minutes and just talk about that topic. Don't stop, don't pause, just keep talking for the full 2 minutes. Even if you run out of things to say, just keep going. Describe details, give examples, explain why you feel a certain way about it. This exercise is fantastic for building fluency because it forces you to keep going even when it's hard. In real conversations, there are going to be moments where you're not sure what to say next, but you can't just stop. You have to keep the conversation moving. So practicing this skill alone prepares you for real conversations. And here's the thing. The first time you do this, it's going to feel really difficult. 2 minutes is going to feel like forever. But if you do this exercise every day with different topics, it gets easier. After a week, 2 minutes will feel easy. Then you can increase it to 3 minutes, then 5 minutes. And before you know it, you'll be able to talk about any topic for as long as you need to. I also want to talk about the importance of making mistakes. When you're practicing alone, you need to give yourself permission to make mistakes. In fact, you should embrace mistakes. Mistakes are how you learn. Every time you say something wrong and then correct yourself, you're reinforcing the right way to say it. Too many learners are perfectionists. They don't want to speak until they're sure they'll say everything correctly. But that's not how language learning works. You have to be willing to sound bad before you can sound good. You have to be willing to make a fool of yourself. And when you're alone, there's no one to judge you, so it's the perfect time to make all the mistakes you need to make. So when you're practicing, don't stop every time you make a mistake. Just notice it, correct it if you can, and keep going. Say something like, "Wait, that's not right, I meant to say this." And then continue. That's what you would do in a real conversation anyway. Let's talk about building routines, because consistency is everything. It doesn't matter if you practice for 3 hours once a week. What matters is that you practice a little bit every single day, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. Make it a non-negotiable part of your day, like brushing your teeth. The best way to build a routine is to attach your English speaking practice to something you already do every day. So maybe you practice while you're making breakfast, or while you're getting ready in the morning, or during your commute, or right before bed. Whatever works for you. The key is to make it a habit so you don't have to think about it or motivate yourself to do it. It just becomes part of your day. And here's a tip. Start small. Don't try to practice for an hour every day right from the beginning. You'll burn out. Start with just 5 minutes a day. Once that becomes easy and automatic, increase it to 10 minutes. Then 15. Build up gradually. The goal is sustainability, not intensity. I want to address something that I know a lot of people worry about. They worry that if they practice alone, they're going to reinforce their mistakes. They think, what if I'm saying things wrong and I don't even know it? And I get that concern. It's valid. But here's the thing. The benefits of speaking regularly, even if imperfectly, far outweigh the risks of making some mistakes. And there are ways to check yourself. You can record yourself and compare your pronunciation to native speakers. You can look up words you're not sure about. You can use the technology tools I mentioned earlier. And eventually, when you do get a chance to speak with a native speaker or a teacher, they can give you feedback and help you correct any habits you've developed. But the most important thing is to keep speaking. Because if you wait until you're perfect before you start speaking, you're never going to start. And then you're never going to get better. It's better to speak imperfectly every day than to speak perfectly never. Let me tell you about the power of self-talk. I don't just mean narrating your actions. I mean actually talking to yourself like you would talk to a friend. Give yourself encouragement. When you say something correctly, say, "Hey, that was good." When you're struggling, say, "Okay, let's try that again." When you finish a practice session, say, "Nice job, you're getting better." This might sound silly, but it's actually really important for motivation. Learning a language is hard. It takes a long time. And if you're doing it alone without a teacher or a partner, it's easy to get discouraged. So you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to celebrate your progress, even the tiny victories. Every time you successfully use a new word, every time you speak a little more fluently, every time you understand something you didn't understand before, that's worth celebrating. And on the hard days, when it feels like you're not making progress, be kind to yourself. Tell yourself it's okay. Tell yourself that learning takes time. Tell yourself that you're doing great just by showing up and trying. That positive self-talk makes a huge difference. Now let's talk about what I call active watching. When you watch TV shows or movies or YouTube videos in English, don't just watch passively. Engage with what you're watching. Pause and repeat sentences that you like. Pause and explain to yourself what just happened. Predict what you think is going to happen next. Give your opinion on what a character just said. Answer questions that characters ask, even though they can't hear you. This turns passive entertainment into active practice, and it's a way to practice speaking that doesn't feel like practice. You're enjoying your favorite shows and improving your English at the same time. That's the best kind of learning. You can also watch the same content multiple times. The first time, you watch with subtitles to understand the story. The second time, you watch without subtitles to practice listening. The third time, you pause and repeat along with the characters to practice speaking. Each time you watch, you're reinforcing the language and picking up new things you didn't catch before. Here's another technique. Create imaginary scenarios. This is especially useful if you're preparing for specific situations. Let's say you're going to travel to an English-speaking country. You can create imaginary scenarios where you're checking into a hotel, ordering at a restaurant, asking for directions, shopping for clothes, whatever situations you think you'll encounter. And then you act out these scenarios by yourself. You play both roles, just like I mentioned earlier. You practice what you would say and what the other person might say. You prepare yourself for different possibilities. What if they don't understand you? What if they ask you a question you didn't expect? What if something goes wrong? By practicing these scenarios alone, you're so much more prepared when the real situation happens. You can also create scenarios just for fun. Imagine you're a talk show host interviewing yourself. Imagine you're giving a TED Talk about your passion. Imagine you're a tour guide showing someone around your city. These creative exercises make practice more enjoyable, and they help you think in English in different contexts. Let me talk about the importance of variety. Don't just practice the same things over and over. Mix it up. Some days focus on pronunciation. Some days focus on vocabulary. Some days just practice speaking fluently without worrying about mistakes. Some days record yourself. Some days practice in front of a mirror. Some days read out loud. Some days have imaginary conversations. Variety keeps things interesting, and it prevents you from getting bored. And different types of practice develop different skills. So by mixing things up, you're becoming a more well-rounded speaker. I also want to encourage you to speak about things you care about. Don't just practice with boring textbook topics. Talk about your real life. Talk about your dreams, your frustrations, your opinions, your experiences. The more meaningful the content is to you, the more motivated you'll be to practice. And the more you practice talking about real things that matter to you, the more prepared you'll be for real conversations about real topics. So if you love cooking, practice describing recipes and cooking techniques. If you're into sports, practice talking about games and players and strategies. If you're passionate about music, practice talking about your favorite artists and songs. Use English to engage with the things you already love. That way, practice doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like an extension of your interests. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, okay, all of this sounds great, but I still feel like I need feedback. I need someone to tell me if I'm doing it right. And I hear you. Feedback is valuable, but here's what I want you to understand. You can get feedback without having a regular conversation partner. You can join online communities where you post recordings and people give you feedback. You can work with a tutor once a week or once a month just for feedback, even if you're practicing alone the rest of the time. You can use apps that provide automated feedback. The point is, you don't need constant feedback. You don't need someone sitting next to you every time you practice. Most of your practice can and should be alone because that's where you really develop the muscle. The feedback is just to make sure you're on the right track. It's like going to the gym. You mostly work out on your own, but every once in a while, you might check in with a trainer to make sure your form is correct. Let's talk about setting goals, because having clear goals makes your practice so much more effective. Instead of just vaguely practicing English, set specific goals. Maybe your goal this week is to practice speaking for 5 minutes every day. Maybe your goal this month is to learn and use 20 new words in your speaking practice. Maybe your goal is to be able to describe your job in English for 2 minutes without stopping. When you have a specific goal, you have something to work toward. You can track your progress. You can feel a sense of accomplishment when you achieve it, and then you set a new goal and keep going. This gives structure to your practice and keeps you motivated over the long term. And make sure your goals are realistic. Don't set a goal to become fluent in a month. That's not going to happen and you'll just feel discouraged. Set small, achievable goals that you can reach and celebrate when you reach them. Then set slightly bigger goals. This is how you build momentum. I want to talk about the mental shift that needs to happen. A lot of learners think that speaking practice only counts if you're speaking with another person. But that's not true. Speaking to yourself is real practice. It's valuable practice. It's necessary practice. You need to change your mindset. And recognize that every time you open your mouth and speak English, even if you're alone, you're getting better. Think of it this way: if you want to become a runner, you don't need someone to run next to you every time you go for a run. Most of the time, you run alone. Sure, it might be nice to have a running partner sometimes, but you don't need one to improve. The same is true for speaking English. Most of your speaking practice should be alone. Conversations with others are great, but they're not the only way to practice. They're not even the main way to practice. So give yourself permission to count solo practice as real practice, because it is. And the more seriously you take your solo practice, the faster you're going to improve. Here's something I want you to try. Make English your internal soundtrack. Throughout the day, just have English running in your mind. It doesn't have to be out loud. Just think in English. Narrate in your head. Comment on things in your mind. Keep a constant English stream of consciousness going. And then, whenever you get a private moment, say some of those thoughts out loud. This technique helps you stay immersed in English even when you can't speak out loud. Like, maybe you're on a crowded bus and you can't talk to yourself, but you can still think in English. You can still practice in your mind. And then when you get home, you can say out loud some of the things you were thinking about. The goal is to make English a constant presence in your life, not just something you do during a dedicated practice session. The more you surround yourself with English and think in English and speak in English, even to yourself, the faster you're going to reach fluency. Let me give you one more piece of advice. Be patient with yourself. Speaking is hard. It's probably the hardest skill when you're learning a language because it requires you to think quickly, pronounce correctly, remember vocabulary, use the right grammar, all at the same time. And you have to do all of that in real time. So be patient. Progress doesn't happen overnight, but if you practice consistently, even just a little bit every day, you will get better. I promise you that. There are going to be days when you feel like you're not improving. There are going to be days when you feel like you've actually gotten worse. That's normal. Language learning isn't a straight line. You have good days and bad days. But as long as you keep showing up and keep practicing, the overall trend is upward. Trust the process. And remember why you're doing this. You're learning English because it opens up opportunities. It lets you connect with more people. It lets you access information and entertainment and ideas that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise. It's an investment in yourself and your future. And every minute you spend practicing, even if it's just talking to yourself in your kitchen, is a minute well spent. So here's what I want you to do. Today, right after you finish listening to this, I want you to spend just 5 minutes speaking English out loud. It doesn't matter what you talk about. Just talk. Describe your room. Talk about what you're going to do later today. Give your opinion on something, anything. Just spend 5 minutes using your voice to speak English. And then tomorrow, do it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Build the habit. Make it part of your routine. And remember, you don't need a partner. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need fancy materials or expensive courses. All you need is yourself, your voice, and a commitment to practice. That's it. That's all you need to improve your speaking. The power to get better is completely in your hands. You don't have to wait for anyone. You don't have to depend on anyone. You can start right now, today, wherever you are, and you can practice every single day. And if you do that consistently, I guarantee you're going to see improvement. Your fluency will increase. Your confidence will grow. Your pronunciation will get clearer. It's all going to happen as long as you keep practicing. So take control of your learning. Use these techniques I've shared with you. Experiment and find what works best for you. Make speaking English alone a daily habit. And watch yourself transform from someone who struggles to speak into someone who speaks with confidence and ease. You can do this. You absolutely can. And you don't need anyone else to make it happen. You've got everything you need already. Now go practice.